With the bad. The Dallas Cowboys, of course, get routed by 21 on the road, right? And so you're like, oh, who could have seen it coming? Well, I mean, kind of me, right? I mean, you didn't, but in reality, like I think it was just an oversight on your own real opinion about the Cowboys because we both know, and most people that follow the NFL closely, that's not a Cowboys fan, that is not wearing a cowboy hat, knows that this is kind of what the Cowboys do, right? And I don't think it's a huge indictment on the Cowboys that they lost the football game and even lost somewhat big, right? I expected it to be about a 10 to a 14-point game. 21, that might be a little bit of a stretch, and it didn't even feel as close as 21 throughout most of the game. I don't view it as a huge indictment on Dallas. I still think they're going to be in the NFC Championship game. I still think they're a very, very viable contender to win the NFC Championship game. Now, they would need some things to go right in terms of, unfortunately, injuries for San Francisco. You don't root for that, but that's, I mean, when San Francisco is healthy, they're going to steamroll Dallas. I mean, they beat them by, 35 earlier this year. So they need some things to go right, but I think they still have a chance. A lot of people lose in Buffalo. A lot of people lose in Buffalo off a tough stretch of games that happens. They had I think it was like Philly. They had Philly a couple tough games, then Philly again. Like Seattle was a tough game on that Thursday night, that Thanksgiving weekend game. So they've had some tough stretches. They've had a tough stretch of games. And so for them to lose going on the road to cold Buffalo, Buffalo's a desperate team back against the wall. Again, not an indictment on Dallas. They still have a chance to make some noise. What is an indictment on Dallas is how the Buffalo Bills won the football game. And in specific, to do it without Josh Allen, really. 7 of 15 for 94 yards. That's it. Yes, he ran the ball somewhat, but it was the James Cook show. Is that Ty Johnson or something like that, the backup running back? They had like 3 guys deep that were getting significant carries and running the football. They rushed for, I think, like 200-something yards over that. It was like 270, I think. I know James Cook had 180 by himself. Josh Allen had like 40, right? So it was how they won, in specific because who's Dallas going to have to play to get to the NFC Championship game, right? I don't know how the seeding's going to shake out, right? But just let's look at the NFC in terms of the teams that they would have to play. They'd have to play one or two of these, following teams. Philadelphia. I've heard they can run the football. You might mean maybe I'm crazy, but I've heard they're pretty physical at the line of scrimmage. Now they match up pretty well against them. They've played them close once, and then they throttled them the next time. Do we really think it's going to happen in a playoff game? Most likely in Philadelphia? I just don't. Now, granted, yes, Dallas right now has the division lead. We'll see if it stays like that. Can they beat Philly in a, one-time playoff-type atmosphere? Maybe. How about Detroit? They go 2 running backs deep. That's probably the best offensive line in football. Can they beat them? Probably. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Would it shock you if Detroit, especially if it's in Detroit, wins that football game with a good run game, really nice quarterback, good coaching staff, clever offensive scheme, a defense that's hit and miss but really, really good in the front 7, which we've seen. I mean, Buffalo decimated them. Their front 7 overwhelmed the Cowboys. I don't think the front 7 in Detroit's quite as good, but it wouldn't shock me if they overwhelmed the Cowboys if they played them. And then finally we get to San Francisco, who can run the shit out of the football. Christian McCaffrey's probably the best running back I've ever seen in terms of overall skill set. I think right now he'd be my MVP pick. I think if he chose to just be a wide receiver, he'd be a top 15 wide receiver of all time. I think if he never caught the football out of the backfield, he'd be a top 20 running back of all time. I think he's that good, and he's doing it in one singular body. So it's not that they lost. Again, really tough spot. I expected them to lose on the road off an emotional game at home, a division rival against Philly, revenge game. But it's how they lost and the way they lost, how that transfers to who they're going to have to play if they want to make a playoff run. So that's the bad. I think Dallas is fine. I'm not selling my Dallas stock. I think they're going to get to the NFC Championship game. I think they'll get throttled by San Francisco once they get there. But they're going to be fine. It just concerns me if you think they have Super Bowl aspirations. Super Bowl teams don't get pushed around for 3.5 hours in Buffalo. They just don't. I'm not saying you have to win that game. I'm not saying you have to win convincingly. But to get pushed around like that just can't happen if you think you're a true Super Bowl roster, and I don't think they are. Are they good? Yes. Really good? Yeah. Great? Probably not. Okay, let's go to the good thing, the good part of this game, which was the Buffalo side. Obviously, you beat Dallas by 21. Dallas is a really good football team, right? Your back's against the wall. You absolutely have a must-win game, and you beat Dallas. Buffalo, good for you. And so it's weird how this shakes up. No Joe Burrow. I'm not saying the Steelers are a threat, but, I mean, exactly. Since when are the Steelers not at least viable, right? Last couple of years. But in general, in history, Steelers are always viable in the playoffs. So no Joe Burrow. Steelers are down. C.J. Stroud's hurt. Not that the Texans would be good, but, I mean, do you want to see the Texans round one? I probably wouldn't. The Texans are a good football team when C.J. Stroud's playing well. They could beat anybody on any given Sunday. He's been banged up. The Colts have Gardner Minshew. They're not really a real threat. Good team, exceeding expectations. They're not a great playoff-style team. The Browns are good, but do you trust Joe Flacco in a one-game spot? I would lean no. Right? Ravens are good, but, I mean, we just saw another offensive lineman go down and another running back go down. How many injuries is that for them? They're on like their fourth string back. Right? Defense is good, but again, good. Do I expect them with that team injury-riddled to make a run? Could. They could. I'm not saying they're a juggernaut. And then you get to the Chiefs. I mean, again, okay, Kadarius Toney can't figure out how to catch a football, and they can't figure out how to pink slip his locker. Like, I don't understand how hard it could be. Scotch tape and a pink slip, see you later, buddy. Like, he's awful. He's terrible. He's probably the worst receiver that gets significant minutes in the league. Obviously, he's better than a lot of fourth, fifth string, guys, better than some practice squad guys. But in terms of guys who get significant minutes, he's probably the worst receiver in football. So I can't trust them. Defense is good, but spotty, especially with the injuries as of late. Miami's good, but you've already throttled them once, and I would venture to guess on January 7th on the last game of the year, you're going to throttle them again. They can't stack up against physical football teams. And so it sounds crazy because of how they started. They were, 6-6, back against the wall, absolutely must wins. And right now, they might be my pick to come out of the AFC. They might be my pick. Who wants to see Josh Allen in a one-game scenario? That defense is playing well. You think it's crazy. Did you see what they did against Dallas? It's one of the best offenses in football. They looked inept. They looked like they couldn't figure out how to move the football. They couldn't pick up first downs, let alone get touchdowns. They didn't score till garbage time. You'd think it's crazy, but in a year where we view this AFC coming in as this juggernaut, this really good at the top, Burrow and Mahomes, and Tua is going to be really good, and you look and you're like, I don't know. Is Buffalo peaking at the right? Is Buffalo the Washington Nationals of 2019 when they won that with one? Like, is that the team that this is? Maybe. That national team was 19-31 at one point, right? And they turned it around. Is Buffalo peaking at the right time? They might be my pick to come out. If I had to pick somebody right now to come out of the AFC, I think it'd be Buffalo.
They're catching their stride at the right time, which I think is very important. Timing in this league and like timeliness of a hot streak, a cold streak is so important.
It's huge.
So look, I understand the Buffalo thing and I see where you're coming from. I just feel like there's still a lot of talent left in the AFC. I don't think I would pick them to win the AFC, but I think they will go very deep into the playoffs.
I think that's an AFC championship team.
Yeah. So you don't have them winning it, but at least getting to that game.
I think they could. Anything happens, you got to get there. Anything can happen once you get there.
Fair enough. And then
I think it's them, Baltimore, and Kansas City.
Okay. And then my take on the Dallas side.
I didn't even talk about the Jags. The Jags are in shambles.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you don't have to worry about Trevor Lawrence.
Anyway, the Dallas side.
The Dallas side. There are watching that Eagles game on Monday night made me really think. Like, I'm not sure I trust any of these big teams out of the NFC right now. Like, we've seen all three of them waver. No, San Francisco went on that losing streak for like 3 games where they lost to everybody.
Yeah, missing Debo, Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams. I'm thinking when you miss 3 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, but they're also still dealing with a little bit of injury issues. I just don't know. The NFC is so like I could see Dallas winning the NFC. I could see Philadelphia winning it. And I could see San Francisco winning it too.
Yeah, I don't think they're doomed. That's what I'm saying. Like, quote unquote bad news because of how they lost and just how that stacks up to how the teams play in the NFC. But they still are certainly of course they have a chance. Of course, yeah. I agree.
Out of all the years where Dallas fans have said it's their year, I think this is the year where they look the most threatening as of like
I would
up to this
100% agree. I don't think Dak's the MVP anymore though. I think that game pretty much put that in the bag.
Yeah, you can't have a game like that.
Yeah, no.
Against
I don't think it's Brock.
AFC opponent on the road.
I still don't think it's Brock. I think it's Christian McCaffrey, but
we could talk for hours about this one. We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right.